believed to be Scotland's oldest reservoir that's still in use. Gartmorn Dam by Sauchie near Alloa is the largest expanse of water in Clackmannanshire, at around 170 acres, and for a time served as Alloa's water supply. The dam was formed on marshy ground and was the brainchild of engineers working for John Erskine, 6th Earl of Mar, who in 1700 made a dam head at Forest Mill and flooded the hollow at Gartmorn Loch until it reached a depth of 11.2 metres or 37 feet, leaving a little island in the middle. The initial temporary wall was replaced in 1785 by one of hewn stone, but damage to it meant that in less than 50 years the whole structure had to be repaired by John C.O.AG, the manager of Alloa Colliery, at a cost of £300 in 1827, the Erskines having begun to lease out their coal mines by the mid-1820s. Less than 10 years later, on 10th August 1835, the Alloa Coal Company was established, with C.O.AG being one of the founding members, the others being William Mitchell, John Mowbray and David Ramsay, and they took on the responsibility for the dam and the forest mill laid. One of the dam's purposes was to collect water all in one place, rather than gathering it elsewhere, causing damage to crops, livestock, homes or businesses. Its main purpose, however, was to drive pumping machinery to drain water from the Erskine coal mines. In 1710, the 6th Earl of Mar commissioned Derbyshire-based engineer George Sauchie to write a report on how to deal with water ingress at his Sauchie mines, as coal was being extracted at ever deeper levels. The reservoir at this time was fed by the Brothy Burn, but he proposed increasing its capacity by diverting water from the River Black Devon. He suggested a feeder stream to take water from the river at Forest Mill. This, in turn, would also potentially increase power output. Sauchie told Erskine that 2 water wheels should be used to power the pumps for extracting the mine water, but the Earl ignored this advice, and water was still extracted using rag pumps and chains and buckets many years later. The problem with this system was that even if a single bolt failed, the bucket would crash to the bottom, along with its chains, plus it was expensive to run. By the time Sauchie had finished his work, Gartmorn had risen by 3 metres or just over 9.5 feet, making the body of water now 1.2 kilometres, or 0.7 miles, long, by 500 metres, or 546 yards, wide. A 1.82 metre, or 6 feet high, horseshoe-shaped weir was built at Forest Mill between 1710 and 1713, and a 2-mile lade was constructed to feed Gartmorn Dam, and this increase in water was used to drive pumps to remove water from the mines, which were subsequently diverted to an area near the dam via the upper lade. The lower lade was used to power industries in Alloa, and in 1891 the borough of Alloa acquired the system. Thanks to Gartmorn Dam, Alloa boomed and became known as the town built on water. The weir at Forest Mill was rebuilt in 1835 and in 1972 was Category B listed by what is now Historic Environment Scotland. The dam was around 60 years old when Sauchie's suggestion of hydraulic pumps were finally installed at Sauchie to extract water from the Erskine collieries. Engineer John Smeaton was consulted on their installation and was asked how to improve the transportation of the coal extracted from the mines. In 1820, John Erskine, the 7th Earl of Mar, gave a grant of water from Gartmorn Dam to Alloa, so wooden pipes were put in place, but under the pressure, the banking was giving way. Under an agreement, the Feuars and Alloa had to help repair any damage to the dam head of Gartmorn, and this was done to shore it up. By the 1860s, the dam was powering 3 colliery pit engines and 11 water wheels at various mills in Alloa. It's thought that when Carsbridge Distillery was set up by John Bald in 1799, the dam was one of the key deciding factors, as the distillery was supplied with water from the upper Gartmorn Lade. However, it was during that decade that the reservoir was solely used to supply domestic water. It had supplied the town from the early part of the 19th century, although wells had supplied it before this, and in the statistical account of 1845, the minister, Peter Brotherston, wrote that Alloa was well supplied with excellent water, brought by pipes at great expense from Gartmorn Dam. New filter beds and a waterhouse were built at Jellyholme, although the waterhouse has since been demolished. Alloa's population boomed, with water usage subsequently increasing. In the later 19th century, the reservoir ran dry for a time in the warm, dry summer of 1887. In 1894, a stone face was constructed at the dam, and water levels were raised once more, but it generated low water pressure, which had to increase to meet the daytime demand. In 1928, an electric pumping system was installed at nearby Carsbridge to deal with the issue. In 1927, it was noted that a portion of the embankment had moved near to the engine and meter houses. Around 30 yards of the embankment had subsided, around 4 feet. However, the borough surveyor Robert Cairns and his team of workmen dug trial trenches in the embankment to find the source of the leak, while the inflow leading from the Lade at Forest Mill was shut off. It had been raining heavily for a number of days, so it was decided to drain off a metre, roughly 3 feet, of water from the dam. To facilitate this, a trench was dug around the end of the stonework at the overflow outlet, allowing the water to drain in a controlled manner, eventually finding its way to the Brothy Burn. The Lade at Forest Mill was cut off following contamination during open cast mining operations in the early 21st century. Clay particles blocked the filtration system and meant Gartmorn Reservoir could no longer supply clean water. The dam is now owned by Scottish Water, who in May 2013 invested £440,000 to maintain it. The major works were to the penstocks. These penstocks at the slipway would be open to take the pressure off the dam should it reach capacity, therefore reducing the risk of flooding. The dam was drained while the work was carried out and exposed the carcasses of fish as well as many shells. Although it doesn't supply Alloa anymore, it does supply local troughs at the nearby Jellyholme farm. The 370-acre site at Gartmorn Dam, once described in the 19th century as romantic, was established as a country park in 1982 and remains Clackmannanshire's only one. It has a network of paths and is used by walkers, cyclists and horse riders. It was designated a Site of Special Scientific Interest in 1971 for its wildfowl, and again in 1986 for its pondweed. It was re-notified an SSSI in 2011 and is an important habitat for migrating winter fowl. Birds live here all year round, and it's a haven for hooper and mute swans. The reservoir is also home to several varieties of fish. The park is open to the public all year round. If you enjoyed this episode of Scotland's History, please like, comment and subscribe. Until next time, thank you for watching.